Good evening. We're back from our in-camera session where we received some new financial information. So we're going back to some budget deliberations, and I'll turn to Liana. Maybe you want to make a comment before we start discussing or putting motions forward?
I'd like to start with a little bit of clarification. So when we started our operating budget deliberations at the 4.5% tax increase, that had the $100,000 in surplus. So with all of the amendments that you guys made over the last deliberations, it's a reduction of another $58,000. But hearing what Councillor Wiley has mentioned, that he wants to return that to make it a balanced operating budget, it would actually bring us to a total tax increase of 3.56%.
Thank you for that clarification. How do you want to proceed now, Liana? Did you want us to put forward motions then that tie into this budget?
I recommend that would probably be our best bet. I don't know if you want to start with anything that you had unresolved from the last deliberation, or if you wanted to start with any of the information that was presented to you.
Okay, as far as from last discussion, we had talked about the Chamber of Commerce, so I'll turn to Councillor Langmaid, or sorry, Deputy Mayor Wiley.
Sure, I'm ready with a motion. I would like to add $10,000 for the Strathmore Wheatland Chamber of Commerce to support an MOU with them specifically to host and coordinate 3 events: the Stampede Parade, the Business Awards Night, and the Trade Show.
Thank you for that motion. And now that we have that motion on the floor, is there discussion on it?
Sure, I'd just like to add that I'm looking forward to working with the Chamber on these 3 events specifically, and I think that it's a very good bang for our buck. Anytime we can have an army of volunteers do the work instead of administration putting on these types of events, I just think it's very, very worthwhile.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comments? Then I'll call the question. All in favor? Could you hold your hands up, please? Sorry. And opposed? Motion is carried. Deputy Mayor Wiley, did you want to bring up your other one?
Sure. So because we've added 10,000, then the amount is now in surplus would be 148,000?
That is correct.
So I would like to move that this is going to be a twofold motion. I would like to move that we remove the $300,000 for the spray park recirculation system and the $148,000 surplus from the 2025 proposed budget, and I'd like to speak on that motion.
Okay.
So right now we're looking at a tax increase of, I believe the last I heard was a 4.15% tax increase.
That is correct.
If we were to remove almost this, which would be almost $500,000, $450,000 from the budget, we are looking at roughly another 2, maybe 2.5% tax off of that. That would be getting us into the 2%, 2.5% tax increase position. And I think, as we've all stated, at least at one point during our last budget deliberation meeting, is just how important it is to us to make sure that what we're giving to Strathmore taxpayers is something that's affordable, that these tax raises are affordable. I think we've all heard really disheartening stories of our residents. I know me as a teacher. I know Mayor Fuel volunteering at the food bank. I know Councillor Peterson at the overnight shelter. There's a lot of people that are right on the threshold. And if you think, well, maybe it just works out to another $100 a year, but that's real money for a lot of our residents. I know for my wife and I, we go through and it's like, oh, we're going to get this like, let's say, for example, a Netflix subscription. What's $4 extra a month to have it without advertising? So we'll cut that. Or we used to order pizza once in a while, but we've cut that. Or there's just so many things that we're constantly cutting out of our budget. I think it's time for the town to do the same and to take a serious look at these it would be nice to have versus these are things that we must have. And so I'm just really in favor of taking this extra $448,000 out of the budget. It would put us at a very reasonable tax rate increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for clarity, Liana, if we remove the 300,000, will it bring us down by even more percents, or is this a reserve that we're using?
This capital project was actually being funded through a grant, so we would not actually see we would be able to shuffle money from a different project to that grant if we wanted to unfund something that we're transferring or paying through a reserve, but we're not paying 100% every year from the reserve. So as we've been building our reserves, we do it in pieces.
So just to be clear, removing that 300,000 for the water recirculator and treatment of the splash park would not result in even more property tax reductions?
No.
Thank you. Could I make an amendment then? Just 1 second. And the reason I asked that is I am in favor of the one part of your motion, but I felt it was problematic to link the two because one was reserves and one was the 148,000. So yeah, I'll turn to you, Deputy Mayor, and then CAO Scoble, and then, I'll go to Wegner and then Scoble.
I would like to make an amendment to that then. Then I would like to add and direct administration to rework the budget so that that grant can come off of taxes. And I'm not sure the wording after that. So the grant can be used to reduce, it can be used to develop something else and that we can reduce taxes.
CAO Scoble or Liana, can you weigh in on
Can we
being
just
able to do
maybe
that?
some clarification to start with? So my understanding, maybe I've got the numbers wrong, but we were at 4.5 to start with 100,000 when we started this process. Since then, we've come up with 58,100, less the 10,000 for the chamber, so 48,000. So that put us at 4.15 or so, plus the new 10,000. So the motion would be to reduce a further 100, not 104, or I guess further 90, not 148. Would that be correct? I just want to make sure we're working off the right numbers to start here.
The total change that we would be trying to balance the budget would be reducing the budget by 148,100 with all of the changes that have already happened here.
So we recess before we motions, because I don't think we've got agreement on the numbers here. With respect to the spray park, I mean, we have prioritized capital budgets according to the capital priority matrix that council approves. So, you know, to rework the budget says let's abandon the capital matrix. We mentioned last meeting there's other ways to do it in your transfer to so your property tax comes in as revenue, then council decides how much of that you want to put into reserves. So you could reduce the reserves by 300 if that's what you want to do. You could make a motion for that. You could start with reducing the 160,000 for the RMR, which is the 1%. I wouldn't recommend that because many communities are putting 1.5% away for 20 years and they know that's not enough. But there's other ways to do that than asking your administration to go away and completely redo the budget at this point. And it's like I said the other day, if you want to reduce capital, you reduce the amount you transfer from the revenues into reserves.
Councillor Wegner, then Langmaid.
So I'm just looking for a little bit of clarification on this. Last budget deliberation, did we not, as a council, pass the $300,000 for the spray park? And according to our procedural bylaws, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but according to our procedural bylaws, that cannot be brought up again for, I believe it's 6 months, or unless you were on the prevailing side of the vote. Am I correct with that as well?
Jonathan, do you have that fresh at your fingertips? It sounds very familiar.
Thank you, Worshipman Council. That's correct. Last October, Council passed bylaw number 2328 that did state, that did amend the procedure bylaw to include section 2812, which states a motion to rescind a motion which has been passed or review a defeated motion may be offered subsequent to the meeting at which the motion was passed or defeated if the rescind motion is A, brought more than 6 months after the date of the original motion, B, a member who voted with the prevailing side may move to reconsider a motion, or C, brought after a general municipal election which has taken place since the date of the original motion.
So then with that, I mean, we would have to agree to rescind it, or somebody on the prevailing side would have to agree to rescind it. And then that $300,000, which is grant money, again, has been accounted for and would not drastically, or would not affect the budget, if I'm correct with that as well. That's all I had.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Wiley.
So it sounds to me like there is a way for administration to move forward and to use that $300,000, however they make it work, in order to reduce the tax burden.
You need to make motions to reduce the transfer to reserves by 300,000 or reduce it by 140 and delete the 160,000 for the RMR, something like that to get to 300,000. But it has to be somewhere in the transition from property tax, which is received as revenue, and then council's decisions on how do you want to apportion that revenue. And council makes a decision on how much money you apportion to the reserves.
So if it was council's will, they could get administration to write up that motion for us, and then we could move forward with this.
But it would need someone from the prevailing side from the last vote on that.
No, this is the way to do it on the front end. If we could craft a motion for council to debate, if you like. But this would not involve the spray park. The spray park's worth $300,000. Council's voted. That's being paid for by grants. Taking it out of the budget doesn't change the tax impact. If you want to change the tax impact, you have to take something out of the budget that has a tax impact. That can be transfers to reserves. It can be the business case for the RMR at 1%, which is $160,000.
Thank you. Councillor Montgomery.
Thank you. Yeah, so a question for administration, please. It's not necessarily for this exact motion, but I would like to know the amount we have budgeted from taxes going into reserves for this year. And then I would like to know the amount that we have from utilities. I understand the 4% produces an extra 700,000. I would like to know the total amount from all utilities that will be going into reserves this year, please.
Okay.
And as far as the motion goes, I certainly support your desire and your purpose here, Councillor Wiley, and I thank you for attempting, anyways, to reduce the burden on our residents. So thank you.
So we have an amending motion made by Deputy Mayor Wiley to his original motion.
Yeah, I would like to request a recess so we can make sure the numbers are correct.
Okay.
Though.
Someone willing to make that? Councillor
I would-
Peterson?
Yes, thank you, Worship. I would move a 10-minute recess for administration to fine-tune the numbers for the budget.
Thank you. All in favor? And we